Coastal Carolina takes the ball, marches to the goal, and kicks it on through. Proud to be a Sean through and through. We'll shout our colors, go Teal, go Teal! And then we'll yell out, it runs, and our beloved Chanticleers will win this game. Coastal Carolina.
Welcome to the G5 Hive in our next installment of our Worker Bee series, where we deep dive the G6 college football landscape with the folks that know the teams the best. Today, we head over to Conway, South Carolina to take a look at the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, who fired Tim Beck after a 6-7 season, then turned to Missouri State's Ryan Beard. Coastal Carolina wrapped up their spring practice way back in March, and fall camp is just opening up. We have a special guest joining us today. He covers all things Coastal Carolina athletics. He is the Coastal Carolina representative for the GSM.com and Sideline Coastal Carolina. He runs the Teal Roost podcast. He is John Bair. John can be found on X at the Teal Roost. Welcome to the show, John.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me. Look forward to it.
Well, this is the first time to have you aboard to help us kind of break down Coastal's roster. And then there's some people who've been tuning into the G5 Hive for the last 3-4 years that, again, you'll be new to them. For those that are tuning into this show today, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? How long you've been covering Coastal Carolina football?
Well, I've been watching and been a fan of Coastal Carolina football clear back to 2014, and kind of went through their FBS to Division I transfer from the Southern Conference to the Sun Belt, and have continued to watch them. I really started covering them back in 2019, and that was, spending time in the press box and being around the games and down on the field, pretty much doing whatever, you needed to do to get as much video information you needed. And I did pretty well with it. Went ahead, like you said, kind of started your podcast. I started my podcast around the same time, about 4 years ago, and got into podcasting, I guess kind of, I'd hate to say it, its height, but it just continues to grow and grow and grow. You can listen to a podcast on anything, for that matter. But I started it because I felt like that there needed to be more coverage of what was going on at Coastal Carolina. We have a great sports media department there, and they do an excellent job on helping promote Coastal Carolina and having a dynamic crew of young kids that come in there, student athletes every year. I mean, they call them student athletes because they're part of the athletic department, but that do an outstanding job, even working with ESPN Plus. So, I kind of got involved with that and met a lot of people locally here at TV stations and through the media department at Coastal. And we decided that we were going to continue on with this podcast. And I've done my best to do my due diligence to cover Coastal Carolina football and athletics, including baseball, softball, you name it. You said all things Coastal Carolina. I'm there knee deep in everything that I do. So that's kind of the background on what I do. I'm retired. Was retired because of a medical issue. So I'm medically retired. It wasn't due to playing sports. It was due that my old heart decided to give out. So I got a new heart, and so I'm young again and feel good. And I'm married. Been married for 45 years to the same woman. Believe it or not, she's put up with me that long. We have 3 grown adult daughters and 7 grandkids, and we live here in the Myrtle Beach area, and right here on the Redneck Riviera. And so we love it here. People want to complain all the time that we play our opponents that Coastal Carolina is not really the beach chickens. They don't really play on the beach. They're 10 miles inland from there to Conway. They make a big issue out of it. And we love it because it gives us free publicity. And then we correct them when they come here. Nobody wants to go, anywhere but the beach when they come down here. So, that's we love it here. And the players love coming here. And the coaching staff love being here. And it's just a dynamic, little small school. We got an attendance of about 12,000 students. So, we're not one of the big major universities, but we like that. We got a big heart. So that's kind of.
You talk about all those things that, the area has to give. And then I think one of the things that everyone really likes about Coastal Carolina, whether, people aren't really in tune with the G5, G6 football or not, is the field that they have there, and that teal field that they have, especially when you have those weeknight games or whatnot, and people get to watch it and like, oh, this is something cool. That is, and it's a cool color. Like that's you got your Boise blue and you got this, Coastal Carolina, that teal colors. It pops and it's fun.
Yeah, we love it. It's called the teal turf. Everybody loves to come play on the teal turf. So, we've knocked off a couple of good-sized universities on that teal turf that I'm proud of over the years, like Kansas. And I was watching the video intro of the show, and it was just bringing back floods of memories, seeing those guys. Maybe saw Josh Norman in there in one of the shots on an interception that he made. And, of course, we've had some great ones here, too, including Grayson McCall, which is now the coach. And he set just about every record you could set in the Sun Belt Conference while he was playing.
Yeah. Well, I talked about in the intro, Ryan Beard arriving from Missouri State kind of brings in a wave of his own players with him. While a vast majority of last year's roster is gone, what has this transition kind of looked like on the ground there in Conway, and what are the vibes heading into the season?
Well, I think for last year's players, you mentioned, it was tough. I think somebody put a sign up on the wall that said "Last person out, turn out the lights," and it was rough. I think that the fan base here is very, very, very committed to football team here and to the coaching staff, to the university, and we had just had about all that we could stomach. The easiest way to say it, there may be children watching this show, of Tim Beck and his coaching staff. And, I just, for him to have been an offensive-minded coach, in his previous jobs, and he's been with some big schools, but, he could just not bring us back to the promised land like we like to be at. And so it was a tough departure, I believe, for him. He was, and I'm glad, he and his family were able to move to Florida. He was able to get a new job quick, and I'm glad all that happened for him. But I don't really think we could have taken another year of it. Chance Miller, our AD here, went ahead and made that decision to replace him. And from what I understood, we went out and probably interviewed 25 different coaches for this coaching position here, and we landed with Ryan Beard because, according to what we were told by Chance Miller, our AD, he just fit all of the pegs. And, he is a dynamic man. I can't say anything but good about him. He's got a, young family, wife, and young kids. Bless his heart, he just lost his mom about 3 or 4 days ago, I guess. She passed away. And, he's the kind of guy that came out and said, Mom was really, really looking forward to this football season. She wanted to see what we could begin anew and try to do special here. So we're glad to have him. We got Nick Petrino, and he comes from a long line of coaching in his career, and he's coached at some big schools too. He played quarterback, I believe, for his dad at Arkansas. There's some coaches that we picked up that we're really excited about.
All right. Well, like you talked about in Nick Petrino, he takes over as offensive coordinator as he follows Coach Beard over from Missouri State. for those who maybe didn't catch a Missouri State game last year or any of the spring action at Coastal, how would you describe the offense that Coach Petrino's installing here in Conway?
You know, I saw a little bit of the spring game as much as, they played essentially a half football. Divided the two teams up in the 2-team format, played each other. There was no kicking done in the game. There was no extra points attempted in the game. It was basically just either hand the ball off and let them run, or try to run some type of RPO, with a passing game. I think that Nick Petrino is still trying to discover within this quarterback group what he's going to like about being a starting quarterback. And, we lost Thad Hudson last year. Thad was our starter. He played the bowl game the year before, did really well. But Thad decided he wanted to go off to the promised land and left here, went to North Carolina State, I believe. And, we lost everybody essentially in that department. So I think Petrino, you're going to see him run an RPO style offense, run pass option, whatever he needs to do until he can really discover, who's going to be that primary starter. I can tell you as we get into that, who I think is going to be the starter against West Virginia. But we're going to have to do a lot of discovery in a lot of different areas.
Well, let's dive into that quarterback room, and I'll talk about this here at the beginning because it's kind of interesting and unique, and timing's kind of worked out. You talk about Ted Hudson, he's gone, NC State. MJ Morris is off to Texas. And then Samari Collier, once he came in, he was like this guy that gave you a chance to win anytime he stepped on the field there at the end of the season. And, just before, I don't know, if I'd say 3 weeks ago, I thought, they're all gone. Well, now they're, back on July 19th, it's mentioned that Collier's filing for a lawsuit, seeking an injunction that would allow him to play the season. After looking into it, looks like he's already got into the transfer portal. So it doesn't necessarily mean he's coming back to Coastal, but, he was so great for Coastal. We were talking a little bit before. You were like, he saved our season last year. What have you heard about his availability to potentially come back to Coastal Carolina this year?
I really haven't heard of his availability to come back. I don't think that there's been an invitation made, or it would have found its way into the press pretty quick because of the startup that he brought in that quarterback role last year. And I don't. I'm kind of disappointed in it because I really believe that he could go into this quarterback room right now, and I believe that he could come out as a starter again, just because of the support that he has from the fan base at the university. And, it would be a foolish coaching staff to not give him a shot at it. I think from that perspective, he's proved himself. And nobody else that we're looking at here in the quarterback room right now has proved themselves anywhere, per se. So, they either have minimalized playing time or, they've had a little bit of playing time, maybe, in like Deuce Bailey coming from Missouri State, you've got him as a primary, I would assume, because the coaches know about it. And, Petrino knows what kind of player. So I think he's going to have a little bit of it up there. But, when I saw those guys play in the spring game, I just did not see anything that just rocked my world, to be honest. Not at this point, or back at that point. So, when you put on the pads in fall ball, it gets a little bit different because everybody's trying to earn a starting position, and they hustle a little bit harder, they play a little bit harder, they hit a little bit harder, and that's what Coach Beard wants done with his team. He hasn't set any high expectations other than he wants to win, and I don't think anybody would say anything other than I want to win. I don't think they're going to say I want to lose. But the expectations that he set so far, I think are just normal expectations. I don't think anybody's overwhelmed and really shouldn't expect too much out of this first season. I mean, if he does an outstanding job and this team gels, everything happens the way it should happen, then, he's probably going to come out on the plus side really well. But the university is going to be there for him, stick with him, give him what he needs. NIL money changes everything in this day and age. And, we're not a university that has tons and tons of NIL money. We're lucky to be able to go out and get, 3-star prospects. So, every once in a while we'll land a 4-star. But we're not banging out 5 stars. We've got millions of dollars to give them away. So, that's the kind of expectation I think we see right now. That quarterback room, right now, like I said, I believe that Deuce Bailey has probably got a hands up. And the reason that I say that is just simply, he has, when he was playing at Missouri State last year, he completed, I think, 23 of 47 passes for 335 yards and 2 touchdowns, rushing for 61-yard touchdown. Now, I will say this in the spring game, he only threw a couple of 2 or 3 passes, but they weren't completions. He did run the ball really well. So, like I said, that's the reason that I think you're going to see that RPO-style game where you have run-pass option, but he's going to be a quarterback that is going to run the ball a lot because he's got legs that are about the size of spaghetti noodles, but they got some power in it. And he can get down the field pretty quick when he gets the motor. So, he's not a real big kid. He's 6'1", 190 pounds. I think probably would like to see him up in the 220, 225 range because by the time you get to that 8th or 9th game of the season, you've been beat up. If you're still in there, not hurt now, you've been beat up so bad. You've got to be able to take that pound. So I think they maybe get him in a weight room, get him up a little bit, get some nutrition in him, and get him to where he can play us.
Yeah, if I'm remembering right, when he played last year, he was a true freshman, so this would be his true sophomore season. So you talk about, or maybe, maybe he's a redshirt freshman.
He was a redshirt freshman.
Yeah.
He is a redshirt freshman.
So he did get a little bit of playing time, like you said. Getting into, it's different when year 2, year 3, and you get into that college weight room, and your body changes a little bit. So you talked about a little bit about Deuce's play style. I'm kind of curious. It sounds like, you think he's the number one. They bring in a couple transfers. You got Trevor Jackson, Trey, was it Guerra?
Yeah, that's it. That's Trey.
Do you think one of those two is potentially the number 2, or is there somebody else on this roster that's showing out to you that you think that they're the number 2?
I think Trey is probably the number 2 right now, and I have him on my number 2 chart. And the reason I say that is he's a junior college product. He's coming out of junior college. He was at Tyler Junior College, if I'm not mistaken. And he's a 6'2", 190-pound kid, but he does have playing time. He played in all 12 games as quarterback when he was at Tyler. So he's had some playing time. He's got some games under his belt. Even if it's at the junior college level, you still you're going to learn reps. You're going to learn how to do this, do that are going to make you efficient. So he led that school to an 11-1 record out of those 12 games he played. So, he's got some productivity there that I think are a plus for him. And, there's been kids that have come out of junior college, plenty of them, that have made it really, really well in college football and Division I. I look forward to seeing what he can do. I think you may see him and Deuce Bailey kind of share that role. I think Deuce will start against West Virginia. And if West Virginia doesn't hurt him in the first series, offensive series, if he tries to take off the run, then I think you'll see Trey probably come in and play a lot in that game. I think that's going to be what you see in the first probably 2 or 3 games, certainly against West Virginia and Florida back here at home, the second game of the season. I think you're going to see Petrino play these guys until he finds somebody he feels like, or somebody that shows him that they can run this offense and be confident about what they're doing and make a difference. We need yardage. Like I said, last year we had one game where we had 13 yards of offense. I mean, that is horrible, right? And 13 points on one game on a score against I can't even remember who it was. It was a no-name team that we were playing them. We should have really just beat the brakes off of it, and that's all we could put out production. And that can't be successful for any.
Well, you talked about Trey being that number 2 guy. How would you describe his game or his play style for those who aren't familiar?
He is he's a pocket quarterback. He does have some speed, and he did show that he could break out of the pocket if he needed to and run with the ball. In the spring game, he did pretty well with that, and he did complete, I think, 3 or 4 passes in that game as well. I maybe a 15-yarder across the middle from a wide receiver on a slant, there wasn't any long touchdown bombs in that game. So, I don't think that's really what they were looking for. They were looking to see what a revamped offensive line could do. And, really what I saw out of that whole game from him was the ability to perform at a quarterback level. And, he certainly he didn't turn the ball over. He didn't do anything wrong as far as that concedes.
Well, Trey's a redshirt junior, Deuce redshirt freshman. Maybe I got to change up how I say those now with this whole 5-for-5 thing. Either way, you talked about a little bit of what each of them brings to the table. Which quarterback do you feel gives this team a higher upside?
I would say right now that if I had to pick the quarterback, if I was a head coach and had to pick the quarterback at this point in the season, from what I know, I would probably go with Trey, because I think Trey is going to be the type of quarterback that can work with running backs. We've got a couple of backs that are coming back who have some rushing experience. Each one of them had a little under 400 yards rushing last year. We lost our backs that were performance backs. They left and went elsewhere. But I think that he will be able to run an offense that is exciting. I think you need that pocket style quarterback. I don't think we want to be just a run and gun type of offense. And I don't think Petrino's ready for that. Maybe he'll move towards that, and that may be in his second year. I don't know. But I think we need that quarterback that can drop back in the pocket, that can hit, a tight end, that can hit a running back coming out of the backfield on the curl, or wide receiver down the sideline. That's been Coastal Carolina football. So I think if Brian Beard sits down and watches the films of what's happened in the past, I think he might lean a little bit towards that with Petrino, staying with that kind of offense initially, until you can develop some running backs that are going to be productive. We've never had, I shouldn't say never, we haven't had, as of recently, especially last year, we haven't had any big running. I can't ever remember us having full, but we never had those big running backs. There's 235-pound guys, that are 6'2", and when they get the ball, they can make yards. We've had those little guys. I call them shrimp. My wife calls them squirts. They get lost behind the offensive line, and all of a sudden there's a hole that opens up for a minute, and they just bust through it. And you're never going to catch them if they get to that outside and down that sideline. They're going for 6. So we've had those types of running backs. That's what I see in the running back core that we have this year as well. I don't see any difference there. So maybe that's maybe you do the best of what you have to work with, and hope for the best.
Well, let's talk about that running back room. And one of these guys that kind of referring to, 5'8", 185, Jevon Simpkins, he led the room, but he's now off to UAB. However, 2 younger guys who stayed despite the coaching change, Dominic Knicely, Jevon Edwards, the duo appeared in all 13 games last season. They had very similar stat lines. Knicely had 68 rushing attempts for 388 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then Edwards 66 attempts, 367 and 1. I mean, they're pretty much identical. You bring in some transfers, and you said, hey, we don't have these bigger guys. One guy that just sticks out to me, and we can talk a little bit about the room here, but Jaden Allen Hendricks comes in from Oklahoma State, 6'2", 225. He's the one that sticks out because, hey, one of these things is not like the other. And he is very much like that. Alexander comes in from Rice, 5'10", 221. Uh, Kente Edwards, he comes in from Lafayette, an FCS school. But based off like what you saw in spring, what you've heard since, how do you think Coach Petrino wants to utilize this backfield? Are we going to have this running back by committee that we're kind of used to seeing with Coastal, or is it, hey, there's going to be a workhorse guy that we're going to lean on, and hey, we're going to get a breath here or there from these guys?
I think it's going to be by committee. The two guys that you mentioned at the beginning of it, Dominic Knicely and then Jevon Edwards. They're both going to be productive backs. They're going to get yardage, but if it's a 3rd and 4 situation and you've got a run play called or a 3rd and 2 or whatever the scenario is, it may be difficult for those guys to get you that yardage you need for that first down. It's all going to be dependent on how that offensive line does for them and what they do in front of them. So we'll get to that in a little while, but the two backs there that I really like are those two guys right now, just because of playing experience here, playing experience in the stadium, and on the road last year. They did produce, and they played their hearts out. One guy that I think that is a person that not a whole lot of people have been talking about is a local boy that we have here from Myrtle Beach. And I watched Joe play running back at Carolina Forest High School. Carolina Forest is where my daughters graduated from, and they're my local high school. They're in my area, so I followed them in football. Joe, when he was in high school, was a beast. He's a 221-pound running back. He's 5'11". He's built like a rock. He's a force to be reckoned with when he gets that football busting that line. And while he was there, he led our Carolina Forest Panthers, as they're called, to 2 6-5A championship games. They didn't win them, but they got off the float. And the teams that they lost to were Dutch Fork High School, which I had a daughter graduated from there as well. And he is somebody that I think now moving into his sophomore season is going to be somebody that's going to be huge. Coach Beard has talked about South Carolina players. I'm going to recruit from South Carolina. We're going to get South Carolina players here, and we're going to play South Carolina players. We're not playing, against an ACC school where people want to come see all the ACC stars play. They come to Coastal Carolina to see South Carolina kids play, and that's what they want to see. And so, I think Joe will get a lot of production this year. So I think you're going to see him in there. They may be even cheat him as a fullback at times, or line him up, to where he can play fullback. Petrino's been known to do that. Did in Louisville when he was there. So there's potential all around the running backs. I don't think that there's anybody that's not in the running to be a player or play consistently at those positions. And I think you'll see them run them in and out of the game relatively quick. These guys get tired, especially little guys getting banged on out there. So, there's going to be some of them kids that are going to get an opportunity to play. And we'll see come that first game against West Virginia who's earned that right to get in there and kick the ground.
So you talked about Joe Ober being probably a part of this committee, but then Knicely and Edwards probably being the first two guys. Maybe let's say somebody hasn't watched a Coastal Carolina game, the last couple of years. How would you describe the playing style of Knicely and Edwards?
They're scant backs. They're fast, and they can run the ball. They can take a short pass out in the flat and take off with it down the sideline or back across the middle. I will tell you this: they're not afraid to go across the middle and catch a pass. So they're not real big, but they're fast and they get open. And if you can get past that secondary, they're gonna score 6 when they catch that ball. And I would describe them as being that type of football players. They're not necessarily, I remember seeing Knicely last year just bolt down the sideline. He beat his man on a corner, and man, he was just there with his arms up in the air when the ball landed right where it needed to land, and he was gone. There was no catching. They're also taught that you play till the whistle blows. And these guys, when they get hit, they spin, they drop, they drop the one hand, they do whatever they need to do to gain that extra yardage after the pass, after the catch. So, that's the kind of player they I think that's exciting because you like to see that out of football. You're watching from up in the stands or up in the press box, and you see them make that move past those linebackers, and they're wide open, and all you're praying is, oh God, I hope that quarterback sees them, or it's a planned play and they're going to throw to a spot because they're going to that spot. They'll get there.
Well, who do you think we see toke the rock there against West Virginia first carry?
I think first carry out of the bat, I think you'll probably see Nicely. That's fine.
Well, let's transition to
West Virginia. West Virginia's got those kind of backs too. They've got those scant backs. They're fast. They got like I said, their legs look like spaghetti, but they can take a hit, and they've got the strong upper bodies. And they can run, man. They can move.
Well, John, let's take a look at the pass catchers. We'll talk about the wide receivers, tight ends here together, but right now I kind of want to focus on the wide receiver aspect of it. You lose 5 of your top 7 wideouts from last year to the portal or to graduation. That's 184 targets, 1,166 yards that are up for grabs here in 2026. Now let's start with the guys coming back at receiver for the Chanticleers. You got Robby Washington. He had 30 receptions, 287 yards, 3 touchdowns in the slot. Carmelo English, North Carolina transfer a couple years back. He had 20 receptions, 185 yards, 3 touchdowns on the outside. The staff also brought in 4 transfer. One is kind of the guy that stuck out to me, one being that Missouri State transfer in Tristan Gardner. How did this wide receiver room come together in the spring?
The wide receiver room was kind of vague. Like I said, there were, I think, 3 receptions by Robby, and that was pretty much it in that game. They spent the rest of the time on the ground trying to run. And so, you've got Tristan Gardner, you've got Robby Washington, and those are going to be your guys that are they're going to be your fast wide receivers. They're going to be the guys that get down the field and make the catch. And we know what Washington can do. And one thing I will like to say about him is, give him the heads up, is he was the first player from last year's team to recommit. That means a lot. I think you'll see Robby as a captain of this team, and I think his leadership that he brings into the locker room is imperative. And that's the kind of football player he is. He straight up loves the game. He loves to play. There's not – if Robby's open and he can get his hands on the ball, he's going to catch it, and he's going to make something happen. He's that kind of guy that you can count on. If you need that player that can go out there on the field and make a play happen, he can do it. He can play in there every single play on offense, too. He never gets burned out where he's got to go catch his breath and get a drink of water. He'll wait for a timeout or something to happen before he does that, or a ball change. I tell you who I really think that is going to be exciting this year that I am looking forward to besides those 2 guys playing wide receiver. And I really think he could be a breakout player. That's how much confidence I have in him. He was wide open target on many plays in that spring game. They just didn't get the ball to him. And that is Kamalo English. English is he's going to make some big plays in his college career as he continues on. He's a senior this year, and I think he's got something to prove. He appeared in 13 games last year. He got 20 passes. He had 185 yards, 3 touchdowns. But, man, what he can do. when he catches the ball. And I think he's got that, one more year of playing underneath his belt. He's a senior. He wants to go out strong. And, these guys, when they get to this level, they start looking for players that, can make it to the next level. And this kid plays with that kind of sportsmanship. Really does. Really does. He's not a dirty player. He doesn't hold. He gets loose and shakes them and goes. And he's looking for the ball. He's always got his head back looking for the ball. So I think Carmela is going to be English is going to be somebody to be recognized. I really do.
Well, Coastal fans saw more targets kind of to Bryson Graves in the slot last season. But honestly, like when you look at the whole team, where everybody ended up, the receptions, yards, touchdowns were distributed pretty evenly, come the season's end. How much with a new system, new play caller, do you see that changing or staying the same here with Coach Petrino?
I think you're going to see more of a passing game with Coach Petrino, and I think these guys are going to have integral roles that play into that offense. And I simply say that because last year we got too dependent on the run, and then we got away from the run, and we got too dependent on the pass. And, it didn't work out either way except for, 4 games of the season that absolutely outstanding. We put up a 40-point average for the game. So, and we were in the 400-yard total offense in the game. So, and that was with the ball area. And, having said that, I think that it's going to be a more of a passing type offense. That's what Petrino's known for. He was quarterback. He's got Grayson McCall in there as a offensive statistician and an analyst, and Grayson, of course, is all things Coastal Carolina. And the people love having him here on staff. Glad that he came back for his second year. So between the combination of those two guys and what they do down on that sideline makes a big difference in what I saw in the spring game. They were able to protect their quarterback with the offensive lines that they had in there, the schemes that they were running, and having the opportunity to be able to stay in the pocket, not get flushed out constantly. That was a Tim Beck. Our quarterbacks took the hammer. Masco took a hammer, and when he was back there, Hudson took a hammer, and when he was back there. Everybody that played quarterback for Tim Beck, including Grayson McCall, ended his college career here at Coastal before he went on to North Carolina State, and then he just got waylaid there in a game and ended his college career permanently.
And those were some. I don't want to say nasty hits, but they were brutal. Like it was a freight train. Like in those moments. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not what you put a quarterback out on the field for, to get cremated like that. You put him out there to be effective, and you got to look beyond a game when you're playing in it too to what's going to happen next week. And is he going to be so banged up he can't play, and then I'm going to have to bring somebody in that has absolutely no playing experience or very limited other than playing practice. So that's the kind of thing I think you see Petrino build around him. When we get to the offensive line, we'll talk about that in the size in that offensive line now and what they're there to do in that offense. It's going to be very important.
Before we get to the offensive line, right before we get to the tight ends, I am kind of curious because we talked about English, Washington, Gardner. Like it sounds like those are the three names that kind of pop up here. Does it sound like we have a particular spot locked up? I talked about Washington. He was more of a slot guy. I kind of assume he'll be in the slot. We talked about English being more of an outside guy. I assume he's going to be on the outside. Where are they putting Tristan Gardner?
I think Tristan Gardner, when they run that style offense, I think he'll be more in a slot type position too. And I think he might also be, he may be in that relief effort, Tristan, when he comes into games. He's caught 30 passes, 465 yards, 6 touchdowns. He set a program for freshman touchdowns in receptions in a season. He's got a lot of playing experience. He's really good, but he's a sophomore. And I think you're going to see Petrino, because of what I've seen watching films of Petrino at Missouri State and then at Louisville as well, trying to figure out what he does and how he does it so well, is that he likes to play seniors and juniors and seniors. And not to say that now in this day and time that you can't come in the football game and start as a freshman. They're a quality player, and kids coming out of high school do that. But typically you want to go with those kids that have some experience. Those kids have been around the block, been around the locker room, been out on the field playing, and I think you'll see. I think he'll be used in that slot position too.
So if Robby's in the slot and English is on the outside, who else would join English on the outside?
If you're going with 4 receivers, I guess maybe somebody like a Cross Johnson. He may be in there and available for that. He's a sophomore transfer from Arkansas. And he's another one, 5'10", 180 pounds, different size. And I think you might see him in that type of situation there on the outside as well. So, they've got a pretty good size wide receiver room, and I think they've got an opportunity to play a lot of different kids there and give them opportunity to play. When you're practicing, it's hard to tell in practice really what somebody can do. You get in a game type situation, it's totally different. And so I think you'll see more out of these kids that they can do on the field when they get to play. English, again, Tristan Glass. Tristan Glass looks pretty productive at 6'5", 205 pounds. I mean, he's got size. He's got speed. He's a kid from Wake Forest. He didn't have a whole lot of playing time, and he got hurt when he was there at Wake Forest. But coming out of high school, he was highly touted, and as a player. So I think you might see him out there in that group as well. So that gives you, 5 or 6 guys that are, suitable to be able to play those positions, and have got experience playing. You don't get recruited by ACC teams unless you can do things the right way. That's especially with Wake Forest, they've been pretty successful over the last 5 years. And I'm not saying that the ACC is any better than the Sun Belt Conference. No, they are, but it's just a different breed of player when you get to those ranks. I think you'll fit in well.
So, John, I want to talk about the tight end group because when I think of Coastal Carolina, I think of Isaiah Likely. That type of like he was super fun to watch. You got this new offense. You got Petrino that comes. Yeah, you get Petrino comes in. What have you kind of like learned about how they want to use the tight end?
From what I saw in the spring game, they used the tight ends. I don't think there was one that ever went out for a pass in the spring game. Like I said, they played predominantly one half of a ball game. And the tight ends were used in blocking roles in those positions, to complement the offensive line, to give you more of that big meat up front to be able to do something like this.
So I guess I wanted to give you this if you are familiar with the name Lance Mason at all?
Lance Mason, not ring a bell.
So he played at Missouri State. I can't remember. I think maybe his freshman, sophomore, junior year when they were in the FCS. And as a junior, he had 34 catches for 590 yards, 6 touchdowns, then transferred to Wisconsin. So I'm part of me is like curious and I'm hoping, there might be a tight end here that could really, get back to those Isaiah Likely's. And maybe, when you bring in a new coaching staff, like sometimes you just don't have those players or that, you didn't get to really do what you wanted to do for recruiting, but maybe down the future there's maybe some hope for this tight end being utilized more than just a passing pass blocker. But, Zach Courtney, he returns at tight end. Cyrus Ellison, Bryson Wood, Jackson Cole, they had come in from the portal. I guess, who did you see out there the most? Did anybody catch your eye? I know you said no one really went out for a pass, but they're used more as blockers.
Well, I watched Zach play now, and he came initially from Colorado. And, Zach, he's a big boy, 6'6", 253 pounds, and he does his job on the line. He's there as a tight end blocker. He's kind of like a Travis Kelce out there. He's a big boy, and he certainly doesn't catch the ball like Travis Kelce does, but he does have good hands when he does get the ball thrown to him. I think these tight ends, the way they're used nowadays, they're either used for, going up and out, or they're going up and in across the middle. And I think that's the way they, you've got to find these guys that are big enough to be able to take the abuse that they get hit. And, if they're big enough to play on the offensive line and be an effective blocker, then they're big enough to go up there and catch that ball and run with it across the middle and not afraid. So, he appeared in 9 games. He caught 9 passes for 120 yards. I mean, he didn't set the world on fire, but he did what he was asked to do. He did play in a bowl game last year, so he has that experience playing against Louisiana Tech, tennis bowl. And he had 56 yards receiving connected. When he was a redshirt sophomore, his redshirt sophomore year, he played in all 13 games. He had 3 receptions, 118 yards, more than 18 yards touchdown. And, he's played against other SEC teams, but against State, he did well against them. He was a big prospect coming out of high school in Texas, and Texas usually produces some big old boys, some big old titans. So I think Zach's going to have another good opportunity to play for that position here at tight end. I think you're also going to see Jackson Kroll. He's another one, 250 pounds, 6'6", big boy out of Missouri State. Came here with the transition from there to here at Coastal coaching staff, and he didn't appear a lot in his freshman year there, but he did have an opportunity to play in the X Bowl against Arkansas State, and so he does have on-field playing experience. He's coming out of high school. He came out of high school when they produced the 10-2 season in his senior year. He did some big things there, but I think he might be a good position tight end there for Matt. Brown Reeves, again, another big kid. He's 235 pounds, 6'4". He's another local boy from Myrtle Beach, and came out of Myrtle Beach High School, or out of North Myrtle Beach High School. I'm getting smacked on local people. But he appeared in 12 games, primarily on special teams. I don't think he recorded any reception stats on reception, but he played special teams, so he got to play, as a freshman, and so he's going to be somebody I think that's going to be available to them in that position too. And if he could do what he did in high school and do that in this tight end room, he's going to be very, very special. The other one I don't really know that much about is Ben Vargas. He's from Franklin, Wisconsin. He did not appear in any games his freshman season. Don't really know about him other than he's big on his, big size. So we'll have to see how Ben turns out. But those guys right there are just a few of the guys that are in our tight end room that can possibly do some special things. I think not only certainly blocking on the offensive line because they got the size, but also, being able to receive the ball. So I think that's an option when you're a coach or you're a quarterback. Is that tight end throws that block and then he steps to the side and boom, he's there catches the pass. And again, it's all about yards after the reception in college football. And these guys that can make those extra yards, those are the guys that are going to be special. And those are the guys that are going to play. I hate to sound too vague on these players, but we just don't really know anything about them yet, and what their capabilities. I can't wait to get in front of them and be able to see.
Well, let's talk about those big boys up front. You talked about, their sheer size. I guess I could go through and count, how many offensive linemen are on the roster. I think that'd be bad. There'd be a bad podcasting, but their average weight, 314 pounds. Their size, I would just by, gauging height, their average is probably like 6'4". So your average lineman there at Coastal 6'4", 314 pounds. That's good to have there. But let's just kind of look at it right now. The offensive line is going to be close to entirely new. Coastal's going to be looking to replace their starting five. Left tackle Nick Del Grande, he went to Duke. Right guard Julius Tate went to South Florida. Right tackle Joseph Hansen went to Oklahoma State. 4 more graduated. You talked about that size that is still there in the room, and the good news is there's some experience that's coming back in Daniel Jones, Trey Franklin, Kane McDonald. They all had at least 3 starts a season ago. What are your expectations for this offensive line in 2026?
Well, I think those guys, they got some starts. Just to pick up off where you ended there, those guys got some of those starts because of their key injuries to other players. And they were not fixed thieves on the offensive line last year. And it almost got to the point where we couldn't afford for anybody to go down because we didn't have anybody to step into a role to be able to pick it up and play. And that's an unfortunate situation. So I think that's why you've kind of seen that offensive group in that room for offensive linemen get kind of packed this year. And, I think you need 2 deep players there. You need a starter and you need somebody who can come in and be successful as a backup if somebody does get hurt. So I would imagine if they watched videos of last year's sequences with Tim Beck's team, they saw those injuries. They saw that it got down to the point where, there weren't players to be able to come in and step in and play. Nick Del Grande was a big loss for us this year. Him going to Duke, I wish him all the best there. I can't blame him for what he did. But Nick was a man's man football player, and he's a big loss for us.
John, we do the own segment during our shows on Monday nights that we kind of recap everything, and we have our own metric for top offense and defensive linemen and all these different things. Nick Del Grande was a staple of the offensive linemen week in and week out. It's not like, hey, how did you do this week or this week? It's a cumulative thing. So it's like, and he was on there almost, I think he might have been on there day 1, if not by day week 3, and he just never left. He was one of the top 5 offensive linemen by our metric in all of the G6. So when you talk about that, that's a big loss. Yeah, it is a huge loss. Not only, you're good on your own team, but then when you're comparing yourself against all of the other linemen in the G6 and you're one of the top ones, it's definitely a big hit there.
Yeah, and you would never meet a nicer person than Nick Del Grande. He's a big dude, and I expect to see him play at the next level on Sundays. When he finishes his college career, because somebody's going to draft a great football player, and I wish him all the best. Like I said, it's just really painful to watch all these guys every day. You say, okay, God, he's going in the portal today. He was going in the portal today. And when it got to Nick, that was kind of tough. He went pretty early, and Duke snatched him up really quick. So that was definitely a big loss for us. I don't know how you replace a player like that. It's kind of like you were talking about Isaiah a few minutes ago. Lively, playing for the Ravens, and I think he got traded to the Giants.
Giants, yep.
Yeah, the Giants. So, the career that he's had since he got out of college is almost better in the NFL than what he played in college football. He was a good player, but he wasn't the star that he became. And man, he's the life to watch play, especially when he's playing with the Ravens. in that combination. Him and another former player that's been on that team as well. So we have, when you get back to these offensive linemen, I kind of just had to handpick the guys that I saw. I wrote down numbers that I saw on jerseys when they were out there. I don't even know if those were the right numbers on the jerseys they ever wear. So, I will tell you that my first pick on that is Daltrey Richardson. He's number 78 on my book. He's 300. He's one of those little guys. He's 328 pounds, 6'6". He played at FAU, and this guy did everything right wherever he played at. He was full scholarship to Florida State when he came out of high school. You don't get picked to go play at Florida State unless you're good. And so, I know guys don't always work out, but he's got some track record behind him. He went from Florida State to Florida Atlantic, and he's done nothing but be a good football player. And he's a right tackle, and you need those big tackles, and he's one of them who can fill that role. I think it was Bruce Feldman's college football. He has a thing called the freak list. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you've ever heard of it or not, but he checked in at number 78 nationally on that freak list. So, I mean, that's like kind of like getting for an offensive lineman. That's like the cat's meow, to be able to get chosen to be on that. So, he debuted at right tackle against Maryland. So, I mean, he's played some big schools and played on that offensive line against some big schools as well. And I really look forward to him being a force on that offensive line. And I may butcher some of these names, to be honest with you. I'll try to pronounce them as well as I can. We haven't gotten a pronunciation list out yet for the media on how to pronounce all these guys' last names. But this guy came from Missouri State, so I know they've got to know how good he is. He's a redshirt senior, and that's Christian. I think it's Loaiza, Loaiza. I didn't see his number on the field there. I didn't write down 76. That's his number. He's 330 pounds, 6'5", and has some really big, broad shoulders on him. So, he started the first 3 games of the season at left tackle again. So there's your tackle sets right there. And he suffered a season-ending injury. So hopefully he's going to be able to bounce back against that. But he made starts against USC, Marshall, and SMU. And, Marshall is kind of our nemesis. They've been kind of our thorn in the flesh over the past 3 or 4 seasons. So I hope he didn't get hurt back there. He was a 24 as a redshirt sophomore at Missouri State, and he played 9 games that season and made 5 starts. So the thing that's impressive about what he did at Missouri State was he helped them surpass 5,000 total yards and 400 points for just the 4th time in program history. So, having said that, his coaches, they know what they're getting. So he's going to be a big benefactor, I believe, on that offensive line. I would be highly surprised if he did not start at one of those tackle positions. I don't know if it's going to be right or left, but he's going to be at one of those tackle positions. The other one is, and man, I had to look up how to pronounce this guy's name. I'm not good with the Samoan names, but I'm thinking you might know who I'm talking about.
You and me too, John. This is something that there's no justice here, but he would get this.
It's a Pisha, and his last name is pronounced Pomelay. And I hope I didn't butcher too bad there, buddy. But I'm going to be pulling for you this year. He's 290 pounds, another little guy, but he's 6 foot tall. So he's kind of one of them that just kind of fits in there, and he's a utility player on the offensive line. I think we might see him start at center. He's played center in the past. He's played guard in the past. He's played tackle in the past. But I think he may end up there in that center position because of his size. those guys that are 6 foot tall, they always remind me, it's like they're 6 foot tall and their neck and their head just run together. It's just, they're huge. And those are the guys that play center because they get their necks pounded all the time. But now that the rules have changed, you can't hit them quite the way you used to be able to hit them. But I think he's going to be something else. He appeared at Central Michigan. He appeared in 13 games with them. He had 9 starts at center. So, again, I think why take a guy out of his normal and move him to something else that, he's not used to playing. But apparently he does really well at center. I think he's probably going to be our starting center on the depth.
And one of the things about him in coming from Central Michigan had a new coaching staff last year, and that was a group from Army. So Army historically had a really good offensive line, work really well together, having that kind of, background, and then, working under that coaching staff there at Central. You definitely know he's disciplined and knows his job and what he has to do there.
Yeah, when Tim Beck was here, and during his, I keep repeating his name, but when he was here, we played Army twice. In both years, they stomped. And, I couldn't believe that we were going to lose to Army. But they had that just hand the ball off, hand the ball off, hand the ball off. And that's what they do. This big old lineman, they got to make them holes from the backs to get through. So, that's a little bit of a shock factor I had watching us play Army. But, yeah, I hope he turns out to be really good. I look forward to him being there. So we got our 2 tackles and we got a center set now, and I think that's going to be a positive for us. The other guy that I kind of really liked that I watched play in that game, and he did wear his number in that game in the spring game, was Mason Barton, and he comes from Jackson State, and he appeared in 11 games with Jackson State. He helped anchor the offensive line unit that ranked among the SWAC's top offensive front. And he also entered the 2026 season with more than 900 career snaps. So he's played a lot of football. Got a lot of experience up there. I'm sure he knows his blocking schemes left and right. And, that's somebody that you're going to be able to take. And he's a junior, so he's going to be coming back, hopefully, if he doesn't go jump in the portal. I hope we don't have a bunch of portal jumpers with Coach Beard, but I'm sure we'll have some. So, in FCS, he did really, really well.
35. Oh, boy.
What's that?
Said 6'7", 335. Oh, boy. That's a big big guy.
Yeah. How would you like to line up against him across the line every Saturday? Yeah. And he played in FCS at Jackson State. And they ranked nationally. This is what I really like. In the red zone, .963. So they had that meat pushing towards that goal line, man, when they were lined up on the ball. So they averaged 36.4 points per game. His offense did. That's the kind of offense we need to get back to. That kind of productivity. We saw it in 4 games last year and got really excited about it. And after that, it went back to the doldrum. We can't gain a yard. I could have gone out there with my new heart and 65 years of wear and tear on me and gained more yardage than those guys did. I shouldn't say that. They're a lot better players. But he's going to be something I think to see. Another kid that I'm really big on, played for us last year, is Trey Franklin. I don't know if you've seen any stats on Trey or not, but Trey's a little fella too. He only weighs 315 pounds, and he's 6'5". And he played at South Carolina State, and South Carolina State is probably I'm going to say the 4th best college football team in the state of South Carolina. Sometimes when University of South Carolina is not doing very well like last year, they were the 3rd best team. Well, actually, let's see. They may have been number 1 because Clemson didn't do very well last year either. So, the 3 top universities in the state stunk up the joint. South Carolina State did really well. He's from Columbia, South Carolina. He's another in-state product. He appeared in 9 games last year. He played 12 games when he South Carolina State. So he's not only got playing experience with us, he's got past playing experience. He was a second-team All-MEAC honors, and they played for the championship in the Celebration Bowl, and South Carolina won that. So while he was there, so he's got a lot of playing experience. He's big, and I think he's going to be a great asset for our team. And I think he's going to do really, really well. And that kind of wraps up my offensive line, guys. I think for a primary overview of, I think there's there's 5 or 6 guys right there that can do a really good job, much better job than what we read.
John, something I'm curious about, and maybe it's too soon to tell because hey, we've got a lot of new guys in on this line, and when we get to the defensive side of the ball, like defensive line and offensive line in the spring, it's really hard to like really gauge a lot and take away a lot, from there. But we've got some returners, we got transfers. Who do you think this room kind of looks to as the leader of the offensive line?
That's a good question. That's really a good question.
Maybe it's too early to tell. Like I said, there's a lot of guys that you name there that are transfers, but that's something I'll be kind of curious about. You got 5 guys that are you got to fill all 5 starting spots. I didn't know if there's somebody that is just kind of.
If I had to pick somebody out of the aforementioned guys that we just went over, I would say that Trey Franklin may be that guy that's there as a leader on that offensive line. Just because he's a returning starter and his previous experience in South Carolina State. The other guys are returning offensive linemen, and they, you got a junior and a sophomore there in Daniel Jones, Kane McDonald, but they didn't really get to see a tremendous amount of playing. So, it may be that those guys jump up and surprise us. I don't really know. I'm just trying to put together the 5 to 6 players I would probably want to start there.
Well, John, let's put a bow on the offensive side of the ball. If you had to pick an offensive player to have a breakout type season in 2026, who you got?
Man, that's another $1 million question right there. I think that there's a couple of potential players that could be breakout players for us this coming season. One of them, I think, could be possibly Robby Washington at wideout. And I think Robby, he was on the verge of becoming that last year and didn't quite get there. And I think that he would be my top choice. And, that's kind of leaning on his reputation from last season. He was a captain and of the team, which I think that brings a great deal of leadership to the entire line. And I think those guys really, really, really struggled with that last year. And they just never could get to the point where they could buy into a new offense last year, a new defense last year. All this happened last year, if you remember, in Coach Beck's last season. He brought in a new offensive coordinator. He brought in a new defensive coordinator. Well, these kids have been playing for the past 3 years, or 2 years at least, most of them, with the same coaches. And, of course, one of them's back in West Virginia now. And, you've got players that just really, they just didn't seem to adapt. And it was difficult for them to translate what they were doing in the locker room, in watching film in the film room. Whatever they were doing, it just didn't translate out to the football. And that's why there was so much of a surprise when Collier came in, when he came in the mid part of the season and did what he did at quarterback, because it was like, who turned on the switch? I mean, we went from being a team that was not even above average to a team that was averaging 40-plus points a game, 400-plus points, our yards average on offense. Our defense all of a sudden lit on fire. I mean, it was just like everybody came together and gelled at one time. And then that all went away with the with the injury to one player. And so, I don't know. I'm going to go with Robby as my pick, and I hope Washington has that kind of season this year. A blessing to see it happen.
Well, let's move on over to the defensive side of the ball. And LD Scott takes over as defensive coordinator this offseason. Before we dive into those players, how would you describe the defensive scheme that they are installing there?
Well, I don't know what kind of defensive coach he's going to turn out to be, but I love to watch his videos every morning where he gets the whole team out on the field and starts hollering, "Wakey, wakey, wakey, wakey." He's snapping the whip behind these boys. I will tell you this. In the spring game, I thought the defense was outstanding. And if they can translate that to a game type scenario for the season, we're going to have a swarm defense because that's the type of defense that he brings to the field. I remember when I was at when it was in South Carolina. Yeah, it was South Carolina that had the fire ant defense. And you know what fire ants are? I don't know if you have fire ants out there where you're at. We got fire ants here, and they will light you up. And that's what they do. Their theme is out hit, out hustle, out hit, out hustle, play to the whistle, play to the whistle. And that's the type of coach he is. I was so impressed by their defense in that spring game that I was like, man, if these guys can do this and we can just be half average on offense, we're going to win some games because the defense is going to keep us in a bunch of those games. And that's what I would say if you ask me again what type of defense he runs, what kind of scheme. It's a swarm. Everybody plays the ball. You got one guy that tackles the running back and 6 other guys hit him before they get to the ground. They keep spinning him around and everybody takes a shot at him, and hoping they'll knock the ball loose. They're really, really, really a swarm type. I was really impressed.
Well, you're impressed with this defense. Let's go into the players. You talk about that swarm defense. I'm kind of curious about the defensive line, the edge guys there up front. That line's almost entirely new. You got 4 Missouri State transfers plus additions from 6 other schools. There's so many new faces. Is there a transfer that the staff seems to be really excited about? Or also too, you talked about a little bit about your expectations of oh man, it's like our offense can just be half, okay, this defense is going to win us ball games. Who's standing out to you on that defensive line?
The outstanding player that I saw, if you were given a outstanding defensive player of the game for a half a game of spring football, was definitely Mitchell Toney. Mitchell Toney he's a rock, and he gets to the ball. He moves his man out of the way, and he gets to the ball. And I saw him do that repeatedly during the spring game, especially when they brought in some of the subpar quarterbacks. I say subpar, they just really lack of playing experience. And, whether they're a freshman or they redshirted because of injury, whatever scenario is, he's brutal. I mean, he appeared 13 games with Missouri State last year, and I know they were happy to see him get the transfer because of Carolina. He recorded 23 tackles, including 10 solo tackles. That tells me that he's getting through the offensive line, and he's in the backfield waiting on somebody. Whether it's a quarterback or it's one of them running backs that's going, oh, no, I'm going to run into somebody really, really bad right now. He also added 5 tackles for losses. He had 2 sacks. This guy just gets to the ball, and that's kind of the way we saw him play in the spring game.
Well, John, you talk about getting to the ball, breaking through that defensive line. With the loss of Zeke Campbell to West Virginia, 2026 marks the 3rd straight season. Coastal's going to be losing their sack leader from the defensive line. Who should we expect in 2026 to generate some of that pass rush for this room, other than Mitchell Toney?
I think Ahmad Poole will be another one out of Missouri State. I think these guys are going to get a good look from their coaching staff because this coaching staff knows what they can do. He appeared in 13 games for Missouri State last year, and five of those were starts. He recorded 28 tackles, including 15 solo stops, 3 tackles for losses. Again, you start adding those up with these guys, and there's the answer to your question. They're going to get through there and make these kind of tackles and sacks. So, these guys are really, really formidable. I think that we were lucky to get these, 10, 12 transfers to come over in various positions from Missouri State. Plus, they don't have to learn a whole new offensive scheme because they already know it. I'm sure there will be some changes in the same way on defense. I don't think they're going to have to learn a whole lot on defense as well. And he played at North Carolina A&T. That school is always fun to watch. That was before he transferred to Missouri State. He played at Virginia State as well. He appeared 10 games there, 33 tackles. Just look at his averages. His averages are consistent everywhere he's been. So I don't think that's going to change for Coastal Carolina. I think he's going to bring those same stats, if not better, to us. And I think they're going to be a formidable defensive lineman. Desmond Barnes is another. He comes from Missouri State. I sound like I'm a Missouri State cheerleader here, but hey, when we haven't had this size guys, he's 310 pounds, 6'3", those guys are going to shove somebody backwards. And if they get up and explode off that line like I saw them in that spring game, and that's one thing, I didn't really know who was playing on our spring offensive line, but if they get pushed back the way they did in that game against our defense, they were shoving the offensive line back in, and he was taking, he wasn't taking a snap up under center. So, that's how kind of these guys are really, really well-rounded, and they've been taught well at Missouri State. So I'm excited to see, for true freshman, basically, he's a sophomore now, but he did really, really well in those kind of games he played there while he was there at Missouri State. The other one is a gentleman that came here from Oklahoma State, and that's Chandavian Bradley. Another little guy, 240 pounds, but he's 6'6", so I'm sure he's fast. And I didn't have a number on him. I don't think anybody wore a 0 number out there, but that's his number to watch for him at Coastal this year. But he played in 11 games at Oklahoma State. I know Oklahoma State pretty well because I know the Big 12 conference, and I hate to say this, but I originally came from West Virginia, and we opened up against them. So I got the old kind of blue and gold in my heart from growing up as a kid and watching them all my time. And so I know if you play for Oklahoma State, he's got to be a pretty good football player. Again, you just don't get those type of scholarships to go play at those kind of schools unless you've done pretty well. Played in 11 games. I think he did really well. He's another one that jumped from community college to the Big 12 and got a starting position. So, again, some of these guys coming out of junior college, man, they really missed the mark on them when they're trying to recruit them. They just think, there's too much other stuff out there. So, I think he's going to be a pretty good player in that defensive line as well.
Well, John, you just highlighted a whole bunch of transfers for the defensive line. Let's talk about the linebacker, because unlike any other room, this linebacking group here returns some continuity. You got Trey Brown, Savion McDowell, plus you get Wyatt Gideon, who got his feet wet a little bit last season. How do you feel about this room heading into the season?
I really hope we're better linebackers than we have been in the past couple of seasons. We really haven't had a linebacking core. We had maybe one good linebacker, and that's been the extent of it. So I'm excited to see what these guys can bring to the table. One of them I did see play in the spring game was Trey Brown, and Trey, he's from he's a Florida kid, and He's a big kid, 232 pounds, 6'1". Our linebackers in the past have been like 5'8" and 5'10" and 180 pounds, and that's not the kind of linebacker generally that's going to put a thick. And that's what linebackers do. They got linebackers fill the holes, and once they fill those holes, that stops an offense from going somewhere. Or they're able to blitz. They're able to blitz through the holes, get back there and make a sack or interrupt the quarterback enough to make him have to throw the ball earlier, hurry his throw. So, having said that, he's a red shirt senior, and I think that Trey is going to continue to be productive. He appeared in 13 games, and 9 of them he started at linebacker. He got moved there, I think, due to injuries. Finished fourth in the team with 54 tackles. 37 of those 54 were solo. So you don't shake him once he gets the hold of it. He pretty much hangs on for the ride. And as big as he is, that ride doesn't go too far. He led the team with 11 tackles for losses. And, so, I mean, he's going to be a productive, I believe, starter there at that position. And he played in the Independence Bowl last year, too. So, again, he's got that kind of experience. Year previous to that, in his sophomore year, he appeared in 13 games, 36 total tackles. He saw action in 10 games in his freshman season. So he's a freshman, player. He's put in a lot of time and played a lot of football here at Coastal Carolina. Trey Brown is going to be one of our best linebackers. And I certainly expect to see him back there at that position. If we're playing a two linebacker set, I think you'll see Jevon McDowell back there as well at the linebacker. He's 220 pounds, 6'1", and he's a sophomore. In his sophomore season, he's a junior this year. He appeared in 11 games and started 9 at linebacker. So again, these two guys have plenty of experience playing at that linebacker position, and I think those are going to be your two linebackers starting linebacker. I don't expect to see 3 of them back there. I think you would probably see a nickel coming in if that was the case. But, I don't think you'll see more than 2 of them back there. But I think those are I do say. Go ahead.
You did talk about that nickel spot a little bit, so I kind of want to get your thoughts of, hey, we're going to bring in a nickel guy. Who have you heard about a competition, between? Because what I saw was kind of interesting. Is Crawford was a linebacker last season, Woods was a safety, and I think you put both of them. Crawford is now with the nickels. Woods goes from safety to nickels. And then you bring in 3 transfers. What are you kind of hearing about the nickel position there?
The nickel position is a. Let me grab. I had something here. Let me grab it real quick that I was looking at with the nickels, because nickels, again, like you said, there's some guys that moved to that position that weren't primarily in that role last year. Miles Woods, he's a nickel, listed 180 pounds, 5'10". Miles was all Sun Belt third team, so I think he can step into that nickel role and play really well there. He played nickel last year, and again, he was third team all Sun Belt in his honors last year. His sophomore, he appeared in 13 games. He had 11 starts at safety. So he kind of moved from safety to nickel when they needed him. And they had, we'll talk about safeties when we get to them, because we were loaded with safeties. So we had plenty of safeties, and they could move these guys where they needed to move them to. And so you had him playing safety and nickel. He recorded 9 career tackles against South Carolina. Again, that's stepping up against an SEC team, even though they were probably the bottom of the barrel last year. In all honesty, we should have beat South Carolina. We should have beaten them in that game. We had them on the ropes at the beginning of that game, and then they ended up with 50 points. But, if the momentum would have continued down that route, we probably would have beaten them. So these guys have some playing experience against some, formidable teams. He recorded a lot of tackles against James Madison last year. You know where James Madison ended up at. So, they've become our, I guess, the team that we hate the most. It's James Madison.
I think you and anybody else who they throw all the streamers, especially on their road games, I haven't come across too many teams that are big fans of that. If they want to do it at home, cool. But when they do it on road games, people are like, "Oh my gosh, I can't."
Well, I tell you what, we did 2 years. Let's see, last year, 2 years ago when they were here, they beat the brakes off of us. Nobody was happy. We put them all on the opposite side of the field, up in the high stands, where they couldn't see anything without binoculars. So they weren't too happy about being where they were seated at. But having said that, those streamers started flying, and we told them after the game that if that happened again and they came here to Brooks Stadium to play football again, and they brought the damn streamers with them one more time and they threw them, they were going to get charged to clean them up. So they could expect that bill coming. And there's been a couple of other schools that have done it too. Appalachian State did it to them. So, it's just, they just like to rub salt, and get granted, they've had some really good teams. Matter of fact, their coach won the national championship last year. So Signetti, and now they've got, I can't think what his name is from Florida.
Sunbelt Billy.
Yeah, Sunbelt Billy. That's right. And he's
back.
He's back. Some people say if he doesn't do real well this year, he might not be back the next year, because that's the way James Madison played. But back to these nickels. I think Miles Wood is going to be a really good one for us when they're needed in that position. I kind of think that when you look at the positions at nickel, when you play that kind of defense, there's two ways that you could play it, and I think you're going to see on our defense in the nickel spot, there's going to be an opportunity for these guys to come step up and maybe change roles in what they're playing and move into that nickel position. Maybe some of those guys that are in the linebacker rooms right now in that room will decide they want to move into that. You got to have a guy with speed, because he's the guy that's in there to rush and or a cover, whatever he's got to do. But he's got to be pretty quick. So he's got to have corner speed, or he can't be a slow old lanky linebacker. He's got to have some speed to play that position. So having said that, I think those guys are going to be busting at the chops. The other one that I see that might play that role again would be Camden Crawford. I think you might have mentioned him a minute ago. He's from Clinton, South Carolina, so he's an in-state product. But he appeared in 8 games. He recorded 2 tackles and 1 tackle for a loss. And his season high was against Southern Charleston. Charleston Southern, excuse me. They'll hate to say it. And he had 1 tackle against LMU later on in the season. So, he could probably play that role. He's listed as a nickel now, so maybe he's vying for that position. I'm assuming he is. That's what he's listed on the roster as. And the other one is Donald Queast, and he's a 205-pound, 6'3" guy from Missouri State. They brought him over with them when he came, and he was unutilized his freshman season. He did play in the 4 games while preserving his eligibility, and so he does have a little bit of playing time. And I think the thing with him is they know what kind of player he can be. Maybe because they redshirted him, there was a reason for last year before Beard even came here. So, that's the 3 guys that I kind of think that might be positioned.
Well, John, you talked about Miles Woods making that transition from safety to that nickel, and hey, safety's deep. Well, yeah, I believe you. When I look at it, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys that are coming back, 2 transfer ins. You got 2 incoming freshmen. Safety's one of the most experienced group on the roster when you look at it as a whole. It's, in my opinion, led by Dre Pinkney. He played every game last year, and I think only started one of those games. But he got some time in there in all of those games. Do you think he slides into that starting role at safety position in 2026?
I think he's probably got a pretty good opportunity to. He was a team captain again last year. Usually, these guys when they're team captains, they don't get kicked off of those roles. They may perform totally different, and a coach may not see that in them, or players that nominate them to be that. But he's a player. He was the 2023 comeback player of the year on the watch list, and he played 13 games, started in 4 of them, as you kind of mentioned there. He recorded 35 tackles and a fumble recovery in that safety position. Didn't really see him intercept the ball too much. So he didn't really perform in that area as well as maybe some of the others can. But he's been banged up a little bit. In his redshirt junior year, he got beat up a little bit. He's a graduate student this year, so he's played a lot, but he's also sat out a lot because of injury in the past. Back in his sophomore year, 2023. Again, like I said, he was on the 2023 college players watch list for comeback player of the year. And he played 12 games that season, recorded 19 tackles, 1 interception. And he had his best game against Duquesne against Marshall. That Duquesne was that was the first game of the season. Marshall's always about 5th or 6th game. That kind of gets you a little bit on the road. I think he definitely can earn that spot again and continue to play there. One guy that I am kind of really want to see what he's able to do is Jalen Lee. He came to the portal from South Dakota State. He's a 200-pound, 6'1" redshirt senior. So I think he knows in his mind, this is my last go round, and I'm probably going to need to, if I don't get a starting position in safety, I want to be the second guy up. And he was first team All-Missouri Valley Football Conference honors in his junior year last year. And he was defensive player of the year or the week back in October of last year. He had an interception against Murray State in that game as well. I think the thing that impressed me the most about him was the fact that he's played in more than 600 defensive snaps. That's a lot of snaps, and that's a lot of experience playing in those kind of defensive snaps. That much time on the field to play in those snaps. The other thing that impressed me the most is he did not allow a touchdown in that season against him while he was there at South Dakota State. I always like watching those guys play in FBS 2. I guess that's what they're still ranked at.
Yeah.
But when they start playing North Dakota State and they start playing Missouri, those guys are always in the playoffs every single year. And it's one of them that's going to win it. And he had the opportunity to play in 15 games, 2 seasons there at South Dakota State just because of the amount of playoff games on top of the regular season games. So he's got experience. And I think Jalen could maybe sneak in there and maybe do something as well. The other guy is a West Virginia guy. And we've got a couple of West Virginia players that transferred in here on this team. And he's Chris Henry. And Chris Henry was really, really talented coming out of high school. He played multiple positions coming out of high school. And when, was Dale Brown? Yeah. Was it Dale Brown who was coach at West Virginia at that time? Recruited him there. And he didn't play the way I think he wanted to in his freshman year. And they redshirted him, but he appeared in 11 games and recorded 10 total tackles that period of time. So he's really fast, got good hands, and that's kind of, he's got the size to play. He's 196 pounds, 6 foot. So I think you could see him in there as well in that safety position. So I think that gives him an opportunity for Dre to worry about somebody taking the job of those people.
Well, cornerback is something that I think I'll say the word nervous mainly because of the unknown. It's entirely new. You have 8 guys on the roster listed at cornerback. You got one of those 8 guys as freshman Michael Knight, one returning starter Jamarian Wayne. So I feel pretty, okay, Jamarian, we know him. We, what we can expect from him, and then 6 transfers. What I'm going to watch a lot of Coastal this year. I hope our fans watch a lot of Coastal this year. Like, what should we expect from this cornerback room in 2026?
You should expect to see Jamarian Wayne. We just call him J Wayne or Ja Wayne. You should expect to see him as a first team all conference SBC player, maybe player of the year. This kid is talented beyond talent. He is something else. He is really good at what he does. He appeared in 12 games as quarterback last year. He finished with 61 tackles. That was the most on the team. And 42 of those were solo. He had 1.5 tackles for losses, 1 interception. He had 2 forced fumbles. It goes on and on and on. He even blocked the field goal. So, I mean, he's Mr. Everything. And he's definitely going to be at one of those corner positions unless he gets hurt, God forbid, before the season starts. And he's the kind of guy that could really make a difference on your team. He really can, especially on your defense. He is really, really impressive. In his junior year, he appeared in 12 games. His sophomore year, he appeared in 13 games. And those were the 13 games he appeared in his sophomore year. That was at Missouri, another SEC team. So we've got quality player back there at that cornerback position and even in his freshman year, here at 5 games, so at Missouri. And again, I know Missouri's not always been the set the world on fire football team, but they certainly have been very competitive in the last 5 years in kind of their rebuilding process that they've gone through. And they've upset a lot of teams that they played. So coming from that kind of experience, coming to here at Coastal Carolina, he is one of those 3-star players that we can count on to bring to the table why he's got those 3 stars. So I look for Wayne to be explosive again this year. The other guy that I think is going to be important for us at a cornerback position as well is Ryan Grayson. Ryan Grayson comes over from Missouri State as well. And, he appeared in 5 games this season. He preserved his redshirt status. So he didn't get a lot of playing time. But I think, again, what I have to take in mind when you look at some of these players that don't have a tremendous amount of playing time, but where they came from, they've got a track record. And, his coaches at Missouri State know what he's capable of and what he could do. So I think he has an opportunity to do really well. When he was in high school, he did really well. He's one of the number 1 prospects coming out of Oklahoma as Rival Magazine rated it. The other one is, I think, a player that could potentially rise to the occasion, and he's from a local school as well. I say local school, close by college, university, and that is Gabe White. And Gabe's from Charleston, South Carolina, so we consider him a hometown boy, being from Charleston. And he played for Bethune-Cookman, and he's another 210, 6'2" player. He's a redshirt junior. He played at Goose Creek High School. Did really, really well when he was there in high school. And he and his freshman year at Bethune-Cookman was named a semifinalist for the Arenas Williams Award. It's presented annually to the top defensive backs in the HBC. And you know how tough the HBC can be. I mean, it is a competitive conference, man. Where you have all the black colleges playing there, and you got Howard, and you got Jacksonville State, just Grambling, and all of. I mean, they're just all competitive schools. And there he appeared in 11 games, and he solo tackles. And so I think he can possibly be a good corner for us too. but it's going to be awful hard for anybody to beat John Wayne out of his position. It's just not going to happen there. So the other one's just got to fall in line.
And we might have just answered this, but I'll ask you anyways, in case you have a different guy, or maybe it is the guy that I'm thinking you might say. If you have to pick a defensive player but on the whole unit to have a breakout type season, while Coastal fans might know him, it'll be more of a the more general college fan or somebody who just follows the G6. Who do you think on that defense is going to have a breakout season this year?
I think it might be one of our defensive ends. And
Okay.
our defensive ends, I think we kind of bounced over that department. Maybe we just haven't got to it on your end yet. But Ibrahim Diawara, he is a redshirt senior this year. But he played in 2025 in his junior year. He appeared in 13 games on the defensive line. Okay, but he also played defensive end, and he's a quick rusher. He's an end rusher. He does really, really well in that position. So I think he might have a breakout season just because of what I saw him do in the spring game. He was playing on the left side, and I don't think there was a single offensive play that was run to the left side that he didn't have some kind of interference. He was in people's faces. He was dumping the tight ends that was trying to block him. If the wide receivers if they had a tight end and a wide receiver line up on him to block him, he would beat both of them off and sack the quarterback, sack the running back in the backfield. He's just that quick. So I think you might see him really do well. He had a lot of forced fumbles last year and fumble recoveries. So he tackled the ball really, really well. I throw this stat out there. Hope it doesn't upset him, but he did have 2 tackles for losses and 2 sacks against Old Dominion University. And we love those guys too. The old D when they come here, but no, their fans are great people. They really are, and their players are all very astute, very professional. But again, I think he is going to be a guy that might have that breakout moment, and for the season, and that's going to be a defensive end, and he is something to be reckoned with. From what I saw him playing in that spring game, and I don't know if he's put on more weight, he's gotten bigger, or what he's done, but his hips are moving quick, and he is getting to the ball when he needs to get to the ball. The other one is a big kid. He's 6'5", 250-pound transfer from East Carolina. And the Purple Pirates, they're always tough to play. We like playing them, but they try to beat up on us all the time. But they're always a well-rounded football team. He didn't appear in any games last year at Coastal Carolina in his freshman redshirt. So he's a redshirt sophomore for this year. But he played at Myrtle Beach High School. And one reason I bring him up is he's a local boy. And he played for Coach J.B. Payne when he was there. And he was a 4-year letterman. He played in the 2023 Shrine Bowl, which is pits South Carolina against North Carolina, states of South Carolina, North Carolina high school football team. He was a 3-star prospect by 247 Sports and ESPN and Rival Magazine. So, he's got experience in high school that put him up there kind of on a plateau as a 3-star. And I think he could be another one that could be a breakout. He is a tough kid. He's really he's from Hilton Head, South Carolina, and I did notice him playing extremely well in that game for the spring game.
Now let's, John, move over to our special teams. We've talked offense, defense. Nearly every specialist on this roster, brand new. What do those units look like heading into 2026? And what concerns do you have? Or maybe there's some standouts that we need to know about.
Well, Again, in the spring game, as I mentioned in the podcast, we didn't do any kicking at all in the spring game. So we didn't get to see a kickoff. We didn't get to see a punter. We didn't get to see a field goal attempt. We didn't get to see an extra point attempt. They played nobody on special teams in that segment of half of football. So the best I can do is kind of tell you what I picked. I think might be the players, and that's going to give you a punter, a kicker, a long snapper, and that's about the extent of the special teams, which is kind of a disappointment to me because in the past, I mean, we've had some really good special teams players, especially in the kicking game, field goal games. We have one kicker that's no longer with us and has graduated out of college, but he was a top kicker for us when I played for Miami. Set some school records. They stand forever. He was really good. But one of the kids that I'm looking at in a kicking position is Nikos Alkia. He is from Spain. And Nico, don't really know a whole lot about him other than in his junior year at Kaiser, he played in 13 games, at South Carolina State. He was Kaiser previous to that. He played in 13 games at South Carolina State. He finished with a perfect 51 extra point attempts. I'll take that. And he converted approximately 80% of his field goal attempts. So, you know, that might be a gem right there. I mean, that might be a gem find right there. I mean, I don't know. His longest field goal attempt he made in overtime in the Celebration Bowl against I can't remember who he played in that game against, but it was the HBC National Championship game, which I ended up winning. He kicked him in a field goal. I do remember watching it on TV. So he's got, you know, prior to that, he was at Kaiser. And at Kaiser, he had 11 of 13 field goal attempts, 58 of 59. And then the previous year to that, he was 41 of 42. So the kid's missed about 3 field goal attempts or extra point attempts in his entire college career. So, you know, that
like you said, you'll take that. You'll take that.
Yeah, I'll take that. I think most schools would take that.
Yeah.
The other one is, might give him a run for his money, is a kid that we have that we've got from Florida A&M, and he's a kicker also. His name's Daniel Porter, and he was first team All-American in his SWAC. He was 17 to 21 on his field goal attempts in his junior year, 81%. So I mean that's a pretty good success rate. He scored 74 points for the Rattlers that season, and he established himself, it says, as one of the top kickers in the SWAC. I'm having to go by the stats that I pulled up on these guys because I've never got to see them play. So, you know, I can only tell you what they've done in the past. But I think he might be an opportunist in that position as well as kicker. And then the other one is a punter, which, you know, I don't know about you, but I would never go wrong with picking an Australian punter. You know, I mean, I would pick an Australian punter over 10 other guys that are standing in front of me. Just because
when you look at the whole G6, like, it's almost weird if you don't have an Australian punter.
Yeah, you're
across the entire G6.
You're not the norm. You're abnormal. And he's from Sydney, Australia. I can't tell you anything about his stats because he doesn't show any stats. But I know one thing: if he knows Australian rules football, he can kick between a skinny goalpost, and if he can take that ball and run with it, and kick from the side if he's being rushed or whatever the scenario is. Those guys always seem to be able to kick the ball. We lost our best kicker last year to a non-settlement with the NCAA, trying to get another year of eligibility for him. And so he was going to stick around and going to hang around, but they wouldn't honor it. So he was out on that. The other one is somebody's got to snap the ball to these guys, and that's the only guy that I know that's on the roster and listed for it, and I'm assume he's probably going to be it, is a long snapper, and that's Mitch Welker. And he's transferred from Missouri State. He appeared in 13 games for them. He's a long snapper on punt units. He earned all conference USA, all freshman team honors. So, I mean, he sounds like he can get the ball back to somebody to kick and into their hands. So, I think that might be the opportunity we have for him. Other than that, special teams guys, like I said, just need to have a career. I don't know anybody else that's going to. I guess anybody can step up into that role and earn one of those playing.
Well, John, there's a lot of newness to the team, coaching staff, new players. You talked about those first 4 games at West Virginia, home against Fordham, at Delaware, and then Liberty comes in before the Sun Belt play begins. What do you hope to learn about this team within those first 4 games?
I hope to learn as much as I can about them in a positive way. I hope it's not a negative thing. I'm going to the West Virginia game. I'll be up there on September 5th for that, and I'm looking forward to going to Morgantown and watching them play them. I will be wearing Coastal Teal, and I will be pulling for the shots to win that game. If West Virginia doesn't prevail, then I will be really excited. I think West Virginia. Let me tell you this: Coastal knows Coach Rodriguez. They knew him from Jacksonville when he was there, and we beat him every time we played. He never beat us. So we know him as a coach, but he has gone back to his old West Virginia ways. And I think that people of West Virginia will be really excited to see that first game and to see what he can do this year. I think he set some kind of NCAA record last year, brought in 65 new players. And I think this year he's got 45 new players. But, they're going to be ready to play us. We've got to be ready to play them. And you're going to have the crowd in Morgantown. It's going to be tough to play against. Ask Pitt. They don't ever play too well against us there or at their home. So they'll have to be ready to play. They're going to have to be ready to play in a hostile environment because that's going to be a hostile environment. It always is. I mean, anytime you got a guy running around a mountaineer outfit shooting off a musket at you, you're a little bit nervous on the sideline. But you got that. I don't see any reason why we won't beat Delaware coming back the next week at home. That'll be our first home game, Coach Bair's first home game, team's first home game. Everybody's going to be up for that. And then the game that everybody's really looking forward to is the Liberty game in September, because we would rather spit on Liberty than play football against them. We cannot wait. They have avoided us like we had had COVID again or something, of not coming here and wanting to play us. And of course, the circumstance there with their head coach being our former head coach before Mr. Beck got to town, and the way he left us when he went to Liberty left a lot of bad taste in people's mouths. And we are really looking forward to beating Liberty to death on our football field on September 24th. The other game that's always a big game for us here at home is Appalachian State. And then again, Friday night game, it'll be, them coming down here. We beat them 4 years straight in a row. So, it's not like they've got a reason to come here, but I just don't think they're ready yet. Their coach, was the offensive coordinator at South Carolina when he left to take the job there at Appalachian State, and I just don't think he has them ready. So, having said that, I think those first 4 games are going to be important to how we play and the opportunity to win. There's no reason we shouldn't beat Fordham that second game of the season, coming back to the first home game again. Everybody all jacked up about that. And so I think we get off to that good start. If we can get off to a 3-1 start, I'd be happy. Last year we started off 2-3. That was not being happened. So, I think if we could win those first 3 out of those first 4 ball games, I would be extremely happy. I know the family.
I know Delaware, that'll be a tough game, especially being at Delaware. Delaware is one of the few teams in the G6 who bring back the same head coach, offensive coordinator, and quarterback. And if you have that in the G6 already, that kind of takes you up a notch. But they have a whole bunch. They might be either the top team or at least a top 3 team in terms of continuity of bringing an entire team back. Like they probably bring the most experience back in Conference USA, and they're probably in the whole FBS. I bet you offensive and defense production wise, probably like roughly 26 or something. Like they just bring back a whole bunch. That'll be for me like one of the games I'll be watching is that one when you got this team that's together, cohesion, and then you've had 2 weeks to kind of prepare for that Delaware game from Coastal, and it's like, okay, how are we doing? And this is kind of a barometer of how well are we gelling together as a team with all these new faces. And I don't have a visual for this, so I'm going to kind of run through this real quick. John, conference games start week 5, Saturday, October 3rd, at home against Georgia Southern. Then you head to Marshall. Before that, Friday, October 16th, week 7, App State home game before your bye. Then at Georgia State, week 9, home against Old Dominion, Arkansas State before you end 2 road games at Louisiana and then at James Madison. When you're looking at that Sun Belt schedule, which stretch of games do you circle as the most important for Coastal season?
Well, I think leading up to the bye week, I think the important game for us to win on the road, and it'll be a big win, would be against Marshall. Like I said, Marshall's been a tough team for us to play over the past 3 seasons. They've kind of owned us, and that's just simply because they had a really good coach, and they let that really good coach go, and then they got another good coach, and so I mean, they can be a nuisance. They really can. I mean, we can clobber them in baseball, but in football, they've had our number over the last 3 years or so. The stretch that I think is after the bye week, going into the Georgia State game on the road, the Old Dominion game at home against, and then against Arkansas State at home. I think those 3 games, I would categorize as 3 games, are probably going to be our 3 most important games. We've got 1 away game and 2 home games there. And, I'm an old football school guy that was taught you win your home games. There's no excuse for losing a home game. You might lose away, but there's no excuse for losing at home. And so if we can win those home games, those are extremely important. So we can put that 3 or 4 game run together there. Expectations are high this year that if Coach Beard can formulate this team and his coaches and make us productive to where we're, let's say, 6-3 at the 9 game point in the conference, then that's where we're going to want to be productive at. And the other games, you don't want to kick them out, but I don't put too much expectation in winning against James Madison, especially playing at James Madison, because our team may not even get out of the end zone if we score a touchdown from them throwing beer bottles at us. Or, when they score a touchdown, we have to wait till they clean the field off of the streamer, clear up the top of the light bulb. So, I mean, we don't really like James Madison. We'd like that to turn into a real big rivalry game, especially going into the last regular season game of the year. We would love that to come down to who wins the East, not Marshall in there digging their problem. So, that's
what's interesting. You talk about that game at James Madison and it ending, hey, who's going to win the East? Maybe, that last Saturday in November. That's something that's unique. I don't know if you've really got a chance to look at the entire Sun Belt's conference, but a majority of the Sun Belt's conference, they play across division. Like an East plays a West. And it's really weird. There's some teams that play like 2 games towards the end, but it seems like a majority of the Sun Belt Conference, that last game is an East versus West. And it's like, what are we doing? Like, I can't change my position. Like, that's just a bowl game. You know, another win for a bowl game. It doesn't affect me getting into the conference championship. I can't affect really the standings. So that's something that I think is kind of cool that Coastal has, is they get to play at James Madison, they get to play East, but then the 2 games before that are West. You have Arkansas State at home, at Louisiana, where it's like, well, okay, if we're going to kind of know where the East is heading into that last matchup, or like, hey, maybe we're banged up. We just had our bye week and we got banged up with Georgia State and Old Dominion. It seems non-competitive in a way, but you're playing 2 West teams. Like, is there a chance, like, okay, we're going to heal up some guys before this game at James Madison? And, especially if it's kind of dictating, like you said, if we're got 6 wins here and we get a chance to going into those 3 games, let's just say you get a win against Georgia State and maybe a loss against Old Dominion, or, hey, you win. You got like 7 or 8 wins there. It's like, hey, how much are you looking forward to that week 13? Let's get people healthy, as opposed to, hey, let's win weeks 11 through 13.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally understand where you're coming from there. And there's, I will say this. There are 4 teams in the East, maybe even 5, that potentially have an opportunity of winning the East this year, just simply because they have quality football teams. You got James Madison. You have Old Dominion. I never count Old Dominion out. They can be good one year and terrible the next, and then all of a sudden they bounce back to competing again in that Eastern bracket. Georgia State, do not count out Georgia State this year. Georgia State has some good returners coming back from that football squad last year. And then Marshall in there as well. So you put Marshall, Coastal, Georgia State, and James Madison and Old Dominion in there. Man, that comes down to a square off at the end of the season. And having that final game played against one of those Eastern teams can potentially determine whether or not you win that East or you lose that East. And it's been that way for the past 3 or 4 years, really. I mean, James Madison has won it, but if you look at James Madison's record, the way they played last year, the teams that they played, not only in the East but also in the West, it was still a opportunity. If I'm not mistaken, at that for last year, I think it was Old Dominion went all the way down to the wire against James Madison on who was going to win that Eastern bracket. And of course, James Madison ended up winning. They went on and played in the bracket games in football in Division 4. But I don't count any of those teams out in the Fun Belt. We call it the Fun Belt for a reason, because it's some fun. It's some fun football.
It's got the defense. It's got high-flying teams. It's got a little bit of everything. Just a few more here before we get you out, John.
Sure.
We've talked offense, defense, special teams. We've dove into each room. Is there a player on this roster that either we haven't talked about much? It could be a transfer, a freshman, or returner that you think can genuinely surprise some people this season?
I can't honestly think of one to be off the top of my head. I can't. We talked about some guys that can possibly step up and step into those roles, being those kind of breakout players. But I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head that could just light the world on fire.
Now, there's a lot of new on this team, but what do you think the strength is of this 2026 team heading into the season?
Well, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I believe it's going to be our defense. You've got some unique guys with names like Deuce Paley and this, that, and the other, but I think it's going to be our defense. Our defense is what's going to step up and keep us in quite a few ball games. And I think that, given the fact that takes the pressure off the offense a bit, that's going to kind of make this team gel. I think you'll see in the first 4 games of this season, I think you will find out most definitely what our defense is all about, and hopefully come see what our offense is. come around. I
Now,
think we got talented, quality players, and I think they can do it.
John, other than quarterback, what do you think is like the biggest question mark that you think needs to be answered before week 1?
Quarterback definitely needs to be answered. I think just as a whole, is the team going to play the way Coach Beard and his staff have talked about in every interview that they've done so far? Are they going to be that team that loves each other? Are they going to be that team that plays for each other? Are they going to be that kind of locker room that carries out onto the field that way? And I think those are the essentials. What the coaches have drummed into these kids' heads over and over and over again since he did his introduction press conference has been, we're going to be a football team. We don't need a bunch of prima donnas. We don't need a bunch of, guys that are interested in accolades for themselves. We want them to do that as a team together. That may be an old cliche in football. You play as a team. There's no I in team. All that kind of thing. But these guys really believe that and buy into it. Coach Beard and staff. And I think that's what's important. And I believe that's what we're going to see out of this football.
Well, talking about Ryan Beard, what does success look for? What does success look like for Ryan Beard in his first season there?
I think if Coach Beard could go 6-6, 7-6 in his first season, I don't want to put too much expectation on him, but I believe based off of where he was at last year at Missouri State, where he is coming into this season with a new Coastal setup, a new Coastal team, I think that's fair to say that. I think if we could be 8-4 or something like that, it'd be glorious. But I think you got to build and you got to grow, and that's what he's got to do with this team. He doesn't like to call it rebuild. He does. It's not rebuilding this Coastal team. He's refining it and bringing it back to its glory days, and that's what he wants to do. So nobody in their right mind would expect the coach to come out and to be that effective in his first year there, unless you're Kurt Sickhead, Hoosiers. But that doesn't normally happen.
Well, John, we've spent over 2 hours breaking down Coastal's team, position by position, room by room, talking about the coaching changes. Is there anything else about this team that our listeners and viewers need to know before heading into the 2026 season?
Well, we need to fill the stands, and we need people to keep buying tickets, and we need people to support this program and Coach Beard and his staff and the players out there every week. We've never had a lack of Coastal support in the past, but last year, I hate to say, and I was one of them that just got fed up with going to the games and watching them because of the type of play that was being put out there in the field in front of you, knowing that it could be better. And, that doesn't make me a bad fan. That just makes me disappointed in a season. The fans here at Coastal are good-loving people. They love their football. They love this program, and they want to see it succeed. So I just say people come out and support us, keep cheering us on, and we'll get where we need to eventually get. It's just going to take a little bit of time and be patient.
Has there been any talk? You talk about filling the stands. Has there been any talk in the 2026 season about the incredible meal deal that Coastal had last year? Is that going to be something that is going to be around in 2026?
No, we all paid for that in baseball season, this past baseball season, with the increase in ticket prices, season ticket prices, vendor food, and all that. So, no, I think that was basically a move to be able to get people to come to the football game. It was a great deal. Don't get me wrong, it was a great deal. And
I mean, Pat McAfee show was talking about it. Everybody was talking about it.
We just couldn't figure out how everybody's going to pay for it, but we figured that out when baseball season came around. When beers went to $12 a can, and hot dog went to $4, $5, all that kind of stuff, and people would pay $10 to eat a hot dog at a Coastal baseball game. So, it was a great way to get people to come to the games. and it worked, I guess, to some degree. Some people kind of got fed up with it and said, we're going to pay for this somewhere down the road. It's not. My dad taught me when I was a kid, when I was growing up as a young man, ain't nothing free. It costs somebody somewhere something. So, it was a great idea. It was a unique idea. That's the kind of AD we have in Chance Miller, and he brings a lot of unique things to our program.
All right,
I don't think you'll see it again this year.
Well, John, we've come to the end of our show here. We want to thank you for taking time out of your day to spend with us, share your knowledge. We really, really appreciate it. But before we let you go, we want to give you an opportunity to let our listeners know where they can connect with you, anything maybe you are working on.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you guys having me on here. It has been a wonderful – it didn't seem like it was 2 hours, but I could talk a lot, but in case you haven't noticed. But the easiest way to find me is on X at the Teal Roost, or also, as I mentioned to you before the show, at Sideline Coastal Carolina. I run both of those on X and
accounts.
Twitter. Yeah, those accounts. And then if you want to find my podcast, it's on just go to youtube.com and type in the Teal Roost podcast, and it'll take you right to our page. If not, they're both listed on the X pages as well. So that's the easiest way. I have contact information on there. If you'd like to be a member, guest on my podcast, I'd love to have you if you're in the coastal area. I know we always enjoy talking with people and meeting and having people's opinions, thoughts, and ideas. So just look me up. I'm out there.
All right. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to hit our like and subscribe button. On X and Instagram, give us a follow. And if you're listening to us on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, please subscribe. Leave us those 5-star ratings and review. They really do help us out. And if you like what we're doing here on the G5 Hive with our Worker Bee series, sitting down with people like John himself, getting to know what's going on, boots on the ground around these teams, share this podcast with one football person in your life. Help us grow. Help the G6 grow. Help John and the Teal Roost podcast grow their following. We want to thank you for your support. Until the next time, we are the G5.